All right, let's start the stream. Gotta get the chat. Here we go. Ooh. Oh, I got a VPN on. I gotta turn that off. What? The stream might flick off. Let's see everything. YouTube figured it out. Kick did not figure it. Okay, I gotta stop. I gotta read. Okay. Restarting the stream. This time with no VPN. Okay. I think something might have happened to my camera. It looked darker than before. I've changed the exposure to -7, which is not normal. Something is very different. What happens if I adjust it? Something weird's going on. Okay. We're just gonna leave it there. That's good. Okay. Oh, I gotta get chat up now. Okay, activate. Okay, chat should screen now. Test. Yeah, Twitch really doesn't like when I try and go live with a VPN. Oh, there's another 2. 1, 2, 2. Everything's good. Pause. Kick. Figure it out. All right. Okay. Looks like everything's set up. So today, what I wanted to look into first is there were elections in the UK that apparently indicated quite a change from traditional UK elections. Like they have new parties, and the new parties made a lot of ground. So we're gonna look into it. I wanna learn what parties there are, and who the people were voting for. Start that. Can you give me a comprehensive breakdown of the different political parties currently active in the UK? Can you tell me what these parties stand for? What's their central message? Here we go. That up a little bit. All right. So we're gonna learn about the different parties, and then I want to see kind of what parties made what kind of gain. So I think there's 5 active parties. Yeah, that camera over. Oh, I probably gotta like adjust that and then bring the. I think that's a little better. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think there was like 5 that got seats. Okay, let's have a look. Here's a comprehensive breakdown of the UK's current active political parties, from the major Westminster players to the key developed and regional parties. The UK has entered what analysts are calling a 5-party era. Well, those are what we want to learn about. With Reform UK, so apparently this is the one that made huge gains, but I'll go into that afterward. Reform UK, Labour, the Conservatives, the Greens, and the Liberal Democrats, all polling in double digits, reflecting deep fragmentation of traditional political alignments. Yeah, because like this was a system that was largely a 2-party system for the longest time, and now they've fractured into 5 different parties that are getting seats. You can make new political parties, and they can do well. Okay. I think Labor and the Conservatives are like the traditional 2. So here we go. Labor Party, Keir Starmer. Position center left. Okay, so that's more center left. They're the governing party, right? So they're more liberals or Democrats leaning, but center left. Okay. Labour is the current government, holding a majority with a working majority of 165 seats. So they're not only the government, they have a majority in government. Their central message is one of national renewal and economic stability after years of conservative rule. However, the party has struggled in office. Starmer's approval rating after 14 months are the lowest of any prime minister in the past 50 years, and support for Labour has dropped by nearly 14 points. The second largest decline for a governing party in post-war political history. On policy, Labour has been strong on climate and renewables. Personally, like I'm not a big climate person. Renewables, I prefer talk about nuclear. Renewables are great. I don't like it when talk on renewables prevents development of what currently works. Like when you're renewable talk and then all of a sudden you lose oil development and then you lose oil security. That is still very important for a nation to have, as we see with the global oil shock that's happening. Oil security is still very important to a nation. You can talk about renewables and developing renewables all you want. Still ensure the oil security and the security of resources is there. I've never been a big climate. I find a lot of climate debate is used to stifle development of meaningful industry. Again, like oil and gas. If you like, climate is important. Trying to get to like net zero and climate goals are important, but can't significantly harm your economy because of climate initiative. They've blocked so many pipelines and stuff in Canada because of this. I think a focus on climate is like we should be developing our way to where cohabitating with the climate is like easier economically. Right now, so much of what we do is still rather destructive. Doesn't always have to be that way, but like you can see even solar panels, you gotta clear an area for them, right? Like they're not great for the economy. I mean, great for the environment. Their waste is still horrible. Production still very energy intensive. The price has come down, but they're not like the magic bullet that's gonna fix everything. Yet. They'll need development. Anyway, when people talk about climate and renewables, like usually this is not the party you want in charge because it's not pragmatic. This is a good goal for like to put as like a 50-year out goal. I don't like it when there's such a focus on. Okay. Doubling down on its commitment to clean energy as a path to energy independence, like energy independence, and price stabilization, but critics argue it lacks a clear sense of direction beyond replacing the conservatives. So, not doing really well. Before we learn about the other ones, let's try and find there were recently elections in the UK. Can you show me who got seats and who lost seats in this election? Can you link me to a graph that shows me this? Okay, screwed this one there. Lost election. Can you? Okay, good enough. I want to find a graph so that as we talk about them, we can see how they did in this recent election. Breakdown. Ooh, okay. Whoa, okay. So is this the number of seats they have? And is that below the change that we see? Why is this? Oh, it can do graphs now? Oh my god, I love this. I love this so much. So, total seats 1. Okay, first of all, here's a English local elections, the most recent UK-wide elections. Also ran aside the Scottish primary and Welsh. So, this is not for their government. This is like local election for their people that are running municipalities, right? But we're still going to see the change. We just heard about Labour, the current party, who got just over 1,000 seats, but they lost 1,500. Like, that's how unpopular they were. They held by far the most seats, and they have gone down to second behind Reform UK, which basically picked up all the seats they lost. Okay, well we'll learn about the Conservatives next. Leader Kemi I've never heard of that guy. Center right to right, so center right to right. Just trying to get a mental image of where they stand. Main opposition. The Tories are in a deep identity crisis, hemorrhaging voters to Reform UK on the right. So, center right, right wing populists. And they're losing massive numbers of voters to the more right wing party. Hemorrhaging voters to Reform UK on the right, their current platform has shifted noticeably rightwards. They have completely dropped their commitment to net zero by, I mean, that is an incredibly left-leaning agenda. And you call yourself center right to right with that kind of agenda? I mean, like, I've talked about it, and this is not a, like, the net zero is not a bad goal to have as long as you don't destroy your economy. Like, you should put money into the economy in specific ways in order to get to net zero. Like, you fund research and development here. You fund this initiative, you fund these kinds of businesses to push towards net zero. But as soon as you start negatively impacting businesses to reach net zero, you get a lot of problems, and because like that's a dangerous thing to have a specific deadline on. Like, it doesn't inspire confidence in the economy, and so much of governments work on confidence that this is just a terrible idea. Despite being the party that introduced it in 2019, and are doubling down on support for North Sea oil and gas. I mean, like, you have your own oil and gas supply. You should be developing it. Although I think after this war in Iran, there's going to be some massive change in the oil and gas sector. Like, we're seeing the fracturing of the big OPEC producers. And they were a group that kept oil prices elevated. And if they fracture, you could see oil prices fall. And I mean, like, Canadian oil is not cheap to produce. And so is American oil. Both more expensive. So we're gonna see what happens there. Anyway. I was getting lost. They also advocate scrapping the mandate for electric vehicles. Like, electric vehicles are the future, but I think you let that industry figure itself out. When batteries get good enough, it'll just become the product people go to. Trying to push a mandate for it is not productive. Repealing the Climate Change Act. I don't know what that is, but axing the carbon tax. I mean, I've always disliked this. Why are you taxing carbon? You should be taxing, like, production, profits. Like, you should be raising corporate taxes rather than creating a new tax for a specific group of companies. You should be raising taxes, I think, across the board. And you'd have a lot less pushback. than specifically raising a carbon tax. And reforming the IR 35, no idea, rules to simplify tax for the self-employed. I mean, that's just good. I think self-employed is going to become a bigger aspect of most economies. On social policy, they have proposed banning social media for under 16s. I mean, I support that. And restoring individual liberties and personal responsibilities as guideline principles. No idea. They lost a bunch of seats in local elections. Okay. So center right, they have some really bad ideas that it looks like they've mostly abandoned. Let me just check a second. Okay, there we go. But at the same time, like, if you've had bad ideas, it makes it hesitant. It makes me hesitant to like support you. You appear to be moving in the right direction, but net zero, trying to push that as a party, talk about destroying your own economy. Okay, how'd they do? Conservatives. I guess this makes sense, right? They have 801 seats, down 500 seats. But from what we were reading, most of that was stolen by Reform UK, which is like the more right. So let's see, because this is the party that did incredibly well by Nigel Farage. I think, wasn't he part of the Conservatives? Like, he's the guy that kind of like led the Brexit movement, but he didn't do it as Reform UK. He did it as one of these party leaders. Pretty sure Conservative. And now he's making a comeback with a new political party, a right-wing populist party, fast rising insurgent. Reform is the most dramatic story in British politics right now. The party has experienced a dramatic surge in support, becoming the second largest party by membership, with approximately 250,000 members by late 2025. Reform advocates reduced taxation, public sector reform, and strict border policies, including proposals for the mass deportation of illegal immigrants, and continues to emphasize post-Brexit independence from EU regulations. So a doubling down on Brexit. Let's go through the advocate. Reduce taxation. Like, I am someone who generally argues for larger government structure. Like, I would personally like to see some kind of UBI or universal basic income. Like, removing barriers to business is important. And a lot of times if you enlarge government, then large barriers, that's just a part of it. But you can do it without enlarging the regulations and barriers to business. But like, reduce taxation is just like, let's reduce the amount of money we have to work with to make our country better as a government. Like, you're giving an awful lot to the private industry with it. This is almost like the government stepping back. And I don't know, like, every time they say reduce taxation, they reduce taxes on the rich. They don't reduce taxes on the average person. The rich pay less tax. And that's just how it goes. And this has happened every time. So I don't like that one. Public sector reform, I have no idea what they're talking about there. Stricter border policy. I think this was one of the big ones. Because from my understanding, when the UK left the EU, they left a lot of agreements that were there, and they actually ended up with significantly more immigration, illegal immigration in their country, because they left the larger structure that was kind of handling that. And so they had a huge illegal immigration problem that they're now clearly there's very high support in solving. Mass deportation of illegal immigrants, just like what we're seeing in the US. Like, say what you want, mass deportation of illegal immigrants is a winning policy. It's won in the US, and it's showing significant support in the UK. And continue to emphasize post-Brexit independence from EU regulation. Now, post-Brexit independence. Honestly, like I don't know if that's a good one. I think, I mean, I'm gonna look this up a bit later, but I'm pretty sure leaving the EU has been disastrous for the EU. I'm gonna look that up in a bit. Reform went into the 2024 elections with a anti-woke, anti-immigration, anti-net zero policy. I mean, like, that's what wins right there. Anti-woke, anti-immigration, anti-net zero policy platform, and has sharpened those messages since. In the May 2026 local elections, reform took, okay, yeah, so now it's telling us what's happened down here in the local election. Like, this party has come out of nowhere. They had 2 seats in local elections, and they've gone up to almost 1,500. Like, that is a shift. Yeah, this one goes up by 200. This one goes up by 500. Like that. These bars should be basically the same size. They just got all their seats. Oh, there's other movement. Liberals and the Greens both done particularly well. So, what have we learned? Anti-woke, anti-immigration, and anti-net zero. So, net zero is the whole carbon stuff. But people don't like the focus on the environment to the degree that it hampers the economy. Immigration control is just always important. And I feel like when the UK left the EU, they actually had less immigration control, and so there's a big push for that. And anti-woke, I guess that kind of just goes with this, right? I don't know. I don't get that. Like, I dislike DEI. But I feel like that term encompasses too much to just support or not support it as it is. All right, Liberal Democrats, center left. So was the other center left party? Center left. The Labor got demolished. So center left. The Liberal Democrats occupy the Liberal center ground. The party is positioned as a moderate alternative to both Labor and Conservatives. So they're trying to be center, with a particular focus on constitutional reform and proportional representation. Ed Davey. Ed Davey. Third party in Westminster. Ed Davey has hinted that electoral reform could be the price of a future coalition deal with Labor. I guess they're both closely aligned, right? They are strong on environmental policy. I'm not a big supporter of that. And the Lib Dems want to introduce a clean water authority and a sewage tax. Now, the clean water stuff, I think in England do their water really weak. Like, haven't they like privatized water to an extreme extent or something? Has the UK privatized water? Like, I remember watching something about farmers in the UK, and how they have to consider water prices. Here in the UK, you're looking well. The water industry in England and Wales famously privatized. The rest of the UK follows a different path. The breakdown by region. So England, which is the big region, right? Water and sewage services are provided by private companies. Companies are regional monopolies, meaning you do not choose your supplier. They are overseen by the economic regulator. I don't remember. I just know that water prices was a big concern to farmers. So like trying to create some kind of clean water authority. Probably good. A sewage tax. I hate how they have to introduce a new tax and then say that this tax pays for this. I would like cleaner across the board taxation, and then the money is split appropriately, rather than, oh, we have to create a new sewage tax and then we can use this new sewage tax. Like, just raise property taxes and be like, okay, yeah, the property taxes have to go up for whatever it is you needed to fund. But no, they like creating new taxes and have a policy. And you have a policy to break the link between the price of gas and electricity to lower energy. Party has also invested heavily in climate action policies, including a rapid rollout of electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Okay, that's the first thing I've heard from them that I like. Because I do think eventually most vehicles will be electric, and getting the infrastructure in place. I mean, like, private industry will take care of it once the numbers are right, though. And proposal to tax companies that fail to meet carbon reduction targets. Okay, this party so far of all the parties sounds the worst. Like, I even like this one more than I like that one. I didn't like this one. Yeah, like, so far, Reform UK, Conservatives are moving in the right direction. Reform UK, I would have probably been the one I supported so far. And this guy's just lost so much support. Like, I don't even know if this is doing justice given the amount of support he has lost. Okay, how did the Liberal Democrats do? They saw a modest increase, 155 seats, little increase. Puts them above the Conservatives. So more center. I mean, like, right, center, and left don't do a really good job at explaining what parties think. Man, it's wild how much support you saw in just this election for Reform UK. Like they've definitely tapped into something. The Greens. So the Greens have also seen massive support. 411 seats. Here we go. Zach Polinsky, left wing / eco socialist, status surging. The Greens have had a remarkable recent rise. Since Zach Polinsky's election as leader last September, Green Party membership has soared above 180,000, overtaking first the Liberal Democrats and then the Conservatives. The party now regularly polls around 15%. Buoyed by Polinsky's populist left-wing agenda, the Greens... So this is a populist left-wing agenda. And this is the populist right-wing. Okay. The Greens have criticized the end of freedom of movement with the EU and have challenged prevailing economic orthodox, including supporting calls for the Bank of England to end interest payments on reserves held by commercial lenders. What? Something tells me there's a story behind that one. In the 2026 election, the Greens gained this. This isn't telling me what they stand for. At least I got anti-woke, anti-immigration, anti-net zero for Reform UK. I need more information than that. Independence went up a little bit. Still low, so I'm not gonna try and go into that. But yeah, they made quite a bit of growth. Still behind the other four parties, but noticeable gains while the Conservatives and the Labour are losing. Can you tell me what the Green Party in England stands for? Is it the UK? Okay, what's this? The story these charts tell us stark. Reform UK dominated, taking 1,453 councillor positions, an increase of 1,451. They had 2 seats. And gained control of 14 councils, while Labour suffered a historic collapse, losing 1,496 seats and control over 38 councils. The other noticeable winners was the Greens. The Green Party gained 411 seats to reach 587 total, and took 5 councils, including Lambeth and Lewisham in London for Labour. The Lib Dems also picked up ground steadily. This was just the English local elections. On the same day, the SNP won the most seats in the Scottish primary for the 5th time, and in Wales, Labour suffered a historic defeat in this Sadet election, taking only 9 of 96 available seats, while Plaid Cymru took 43 and Reform UK took 34. So you're actually seeing this even play out Um, what is this? The Scottish primary? Scottish and Wales? I think we're doing. Okay. Central messaging, this is what we want. Under their new leader, Zach Polinsky, the Greens have rebranded around what he calls eco-populism, combining environmental policies. And like, I'm so I'm not a big supporter of environmental policy. Like, they are a good goal to put like investment into, I would say. Um, but building a political brand around environmental politics, I think is dangerous because like the more you focus on the environment, the more harm you will do to the economy. Um, and so it's kind of like a game. You can't focus on the environment to the point where you destroy the economy. Now, I do like um, specifically like R&D into environment aspects, like putting research into development into making a process consume less or produce less carbon, or creating or putting money into like carbon capture technology, because I think that's the way out. That's how you fix the problem. um Cutting back, like what this leads to is suddenly your economy exports the most carbon intensive aspects of the process, and you export it to a country with no controls over carbon. So whereas if you had this in your own country, you could you could manage carbon output to a degree. Having it in a foreign country just means you don't get to manage it at all. The amount of carbon per process will go up, and it's one world. You're not helping the world, okay? A lot of environmental policies don't help the world. That's not good. If you're gonna do environmental politics, at least do ones that'll help the world. Like so much of that carbon capture, like, oh, the carbon rebate on the forest, like that's just so much of that is so much of that. And so I'm always wary whenever someone says environmental politics. And with populism, linking issues such as high cost of living with climate change. High cost of living. I mean, like those are hard to link. Like, I mean, I guess climate change, does it run up cost of living? Like in specific cases, I'm sure it does. But generally, I'm not sure if there's a strong correlation. Okay. Polinsky argues that people are unable to consider the climate crisis if they are struggling with day-to-day material concerns, such as high rent. Okay, now he's saying something I can understand. Unable to consider. Go through this again. Linsky argues that people are unable to consider the climate crisis if they are struggling with day-to-day material concerns such as high rent, food costs, or heating bills. Yeah. People generally have a smaller picture when their life is hard. When their life is hard, they're focused on their life. And so things like the cost of living, if you want people to care about climate, reduce their cost of living, make living easier, and they will care about the climate. The issue is a lot of the things that make their life easier are developing the economy, which generally has a negative impact on the environment. And so you got yourself like a problem. In short, the pitch is you can't save the planet if you can't pay your rent. And the same greedy system is responsible for both problems. Like, I like it other than the focus on the environmental politics. Like that's kind of the killer for me. We're not going to go into too much depth. I didn't do that with the other parties. Yeah. So how did they do? Greens 144. So they did great. That's a great. That's a great gain. So these are left. So these are like center left, center right, far left, far right. But the story is here, right? From 2 seats to 1,453. That all comes back to anti-woke, anti-immigration, and removing the inhibitions created by climate activism, fixing the immigration system, which, in my opinion, took damage during Brexit. Anti-woke. Woke covers too much. Some I agree with, some I don't. I mean, like, if this wasn't the person leading it, this would be probably the one I support. But, like, he comes with baggage. Anyway, I'm happy to see there's more parties now. I like this. I think we should be creating more parties that are competitive like this. I'd like to see more parties in Canada because we traditionally have a 3-party system. But hey, we can always make a new party, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna try and do stories under. So, pull this up. Something I want to talk about. Here we go. So one of the places I put my content, Elevation TV. Go. Uploads. Oh, before that, one thing I wanted to say. I made a change in my rating system. I'll bring it up I do plan to keep going through this, but maybe after I cover a couple of stories. Oh, that's a no. Doing its update. Okay. We're gonna move on while it does that. What was I looking at? So this, you'll see I get a lot of no views on a lot of the content, but every once in a while there's one. How is there a like on something with zero views? You just scroll through and like. I don't get that, but there are some that I get more views on. So we're gonna look at this one, because this 300,000. I was getting into a little debate with someone in the comments. We'll go through. Venezuela is dead, and I don't really care if Canada is put into a recession. We already are. Alberta independent is the only path forward. The Alberta separatist stuff. So I was like, I get it. I get pushing for it. I do. Like there is certainly advantages for it. I just think that it wouldn't really help if we got Alberta independence. So if it's not going to help, why are we pushing for it? Why are you for Alberta independence? Got someone coming back to me. Casual, positive. Why stay? Okay, I like that. Like I want to try and answer that question. So for Alberta independence, why should we stay? Was I waiting on here? Oh, just quick. DW documentaries. They prevent me from uploading videos that show their content. So they got moved down to the do not trust or do not watch. They stopped me from uploading a video. They blocked it. So we will be avoiding them from now on. All right. So, new chat. Question comes down to why stay as part, like assuming, like let's just say we're going to throw the whole can we leave or can't we leave actually out and just say it's possible that if you get a vote you could leave Canada. Why stay a part of Canada? So from what I can see, when we look at the global environment, the best similarity that exists out there would be Brexit. I mean, a lot of people consider the Alberta separatist movement as like Wexit, like they literally like named it off it, West Exit. So our closest similarity would be Brexit, which is the UK leaving the EU. So let's just take a look at how that's gone for the UK. Like, how has the effects of Brexit affected the UK? Can you go into details? I think that's how it's spelled. UK, can you go into details? What do we want to look at? Like GDP, public sentiment, what else? I I think that'll get a good enough idea. Because if we're thinking of doing something that's similar to Brexit, let's just look at how Brexit went. Okay. It's kind of getting in the way here. Second. Maybe we let it finish. What we Let's see if there's any new news. Oh, vanish. Why Brexit was the biggest mistake in UK history? That seems like it would be a good thing to watch. The Brexit reversal is happening right now. I mean, considering... If I get that chart back. Here. Like, considering the video titles we just read, Brexit was a horrible idea. Reform UK is the most popular party. And from my understanding, weren't they like doubling down? Emphasizing post-Brexit independence from EU regulation. So like for people to say this was so bad, you got a lot of the population doubling down. Like double or nothing. Okay, here we go. I think I might watch one of Coin, no idea. Foresight. Giant. I'd like it to search through like the channels that I have subbed to and put their content at the top, because I guarantee you some of my subs have talked about it. They don't get put near the top. I think we'll watch this one after we do a little research onto it on our own. Okay. Here's a detailed breakdown of Brexit's effect on the UK across multiple dimensions. GDP and economic output. The economic damage has been significant and has grown worse over time. By 2025, estimates suggest UK GDP per capita was 6 to 7% lower than it would have been without Brexit. Investment was 12 to 18% lower, employment 3 to 4% lower, and productivity 3 to 4% lower. These losses emerged gradually. The impact was hard to see in 2017/2018, but accumulated steady over the subsequent decade as uncertainty persisted. I mean, this is such a problem for an economy. Like, uncertainty is the killer of the economy. You have to maintain certainty. Like certainty in like, because if a business is going to enter your country, create a factory, make a bunch of jobs, they need to know that the factory will be profitable over a certain course of time so that they can make the money back from their initial investment. This is just basic business stuff. And if there is uncertainty in your political system, it can lead to businesses hesitating. Like, there's uncertainty in Britain. Okay, maybe we open a factory in France. Still part of the EU. we can make long-term models around what we can do here. Um, and so uncertainty is like it's very dangerous. Trade barriers. Okay, where was I? But accumulated steadily over the subsequent decade as uncertainty persisted, trade barriers rose, and firms diverted resources away from productive activity. Based on the 25-26 Bloomberg Economic Research, breakfast has caused significant, significant, persistent, and worsening drag on the UK economy, costing an estimated £100 billion to over £200 billion annually. Economists actually underestimated the long-term damage. The consensus pre-referendum forecast of a 4% long-run GDP loss turned out to be close to the actual loss after 5 years, but too optimistic about the longer run. The Office for Budget Responsibility also weighed in. Their March 2025 forecast assumed the post-Brexit trading relationship will reduce long-run productivity by 4% relative to remaining in the EU, largely reflecting their views that the increase in non-tariff barriers on UK/EU trade acts as an additional implement to the exploration of comparative advantage. So, GDP per capita was 6 to 8% lower. And this isn't a decrease, this is a lack of an increase in their GDP. Investment was 12 to 18% lower. A lot of that is uncertainty, right? Employment 3 to 4% lower. Like these are all bad numbers that all stack up. Okay, business investment. This has been the hardest hit area. The UK went from being a relatively strong performer pre-referendum to a laggard afterward. By 2025, business investment was 12 to 18% below the level implemented by comparative economy. Four main channels drove these effects. First, the UK's decision to leave the EU generated a persistent increase in uncertainty, weighing on investment. Second, investment and employment growth were affected by lower expected demand. Third, productivity growth within firms was affected by lower innovation and IT investment, and by management time being used to prepare for Brexit. Finally, productivity growth between firms was reduced as resources were misallocated. So the business investment, where it's had its biggest hit. Trade. Imports from the EU to the UK dropped by 52 to 40% of total imports. Whoa. That's huge. While importers from China and the United States increased from 9 to 13 and from 9 to 12, respectively. Does that make up the amount of imports they lost? It certainly doesn't look like it. The bare bones trade deal with the UK leaves the bloc's single market and customs union. While goods can move without tariffs or quotas, it brought new red tape, costs, and delays for trading businesses. One business owner summed it up bluntly: "It has cost us money. We are definitely slower and it's more expensive, but we've survived." So, slower, more expensive, but businesses are still there. Regional impact. 2024 study found that the vast majority of UK regions experienced significant output losses as a result of Brexit, estimated at 15 to 10% percentage points of GDP. While Brexit reduced regional inequalities, it did so by leveling up through leveling down. Previously more prosperous regions such as London and the Midlands were disproportionately hit, resulting in a poor UK overall. Okay, so more prosperous regions such as London and the Midlands disproportionately hit. Okay. Immigration, the paradox. One of Brexit's biggest ironies, a desire to reduce immigration, was a major reason many people voted to leave the EU. Yet, immigration to the UK today is far higher than before Brexit because the number of visas granted for workers from around the world has soared. The end of free movement has restricted EU labor supply. Net immigration from the EU, which peaked at over 200,000 a year at the time of the referendum, is now negative. The main impact has mostly been higher prices and reduced output in affected sectors rather than sharply higher wages. So people wanted immigration controls, so they voted for Brexit to gain control over their own immigration. And yet, when they went through Brexit, the number of visas granted for workers from around the world has soared. So they ended up with higher immigration, and the immigrants were no longer coming from the EU. I mean, you leave the union, that happens. Like, one of the main things they were voting for, they got the exact opposite. Okay, public sentiment. Public opinion has dramatically reversed. Since the middle of 2021, a growing majority of voters in Britain have felt that Brexit was the wrong decision. As of May 2024, around 55% thought it was wrong to leave the EU, compared with just 43% in April 2021. I mean, like, look at the change over time. They left. 3 years later, it's gained 12 points that it was wrong to leave. The share who think it was the right decision has fallen from 46 to 31 in the same period. Like, if we're using this as essentially predict the future of what would happen with Alberta leaving Canada, then you could expect drops like this as well. Like, it is likely to play out in a similar way, right? This is like the closest working example we have, and you already see a lot of people that thought it was a good decision moving to think it wasn't a good decision. That survey from January 2025 highlighted that most people in the UK thought that Brexit had a mainly negative impact, especially on the cost of living and the economy. Even Leave voters have largely soured on it. 2/3 of the British public think Brexit has damaged the economy, while even among Leave voters, only 1 in 5 thinks the impact has been positive. So even the people that vote for it, only 1 in 5 think there's a positive impact. Our voters are still quite divided on what relationship they want with the EU, with only 31 supporting rejoining completely, while 30% merely want to improve trade relations without rejoining the EU or the single market. The bottom line, the evidence is fairly clear and increasingly robust. Brexit has been a slow-burning economic wound. The costs were real but gradual, difficult to see in the early years but compounding steadily. The public has come to realize this through political will to reverse course remains limited. The UK now finds itself in the awkward position of having less EU trade, more non-EU immigration, and significantly lower growth than it would likely have had otherwise. I like the summaries. There's the political will to reverse course remains limited. So we see this in Reform UK, doubling down on preventing EU regulation. But like the summary here, the UK now finds itself in the awkward position of having less EU trade, more non-EU immigration, and significantly lower growth than it would have likely had otherwise. Like, this all sounds bad. And if we're using this as the model of what an Alberta separation could look like, we're likely to have significantly less trade with Canada than we currently do. We'd probably have more immigration from non-Canada, and you'd probably see a large outflow of Canadians that still wish to be a part of Canada leaving Alberta. And then we'd have significantly lower growth. Like, these are all bad. So like, why stay? I don't want any of these problems. Basically what it comes down to. I don't think the Albertan government is significantly more competent than the UK government. We might not have the problems in the same way, but I expect we would have problems just like this. And the significantly lower growth is probably one that would be consistent. If we're looking at Brexit, how could we compare that to the Canadian province of Alberta separating from Canada? Let's just do the comparison. See what it comes up with. What could we predict to happen? All right, we're gonna let it run. I don't know, like I'm really skeptical of just watching random videos now after the last one blocked. Why Brexit was the biggest mistake in UK history.
In June 2016, 52% of the British electorate voted to leave the European Union, a decision framed as the reclaiming of sovereignty, borders, and economic independence. But today, nearly a decade later, a growing body of economists, policy analysts, and geopolitical observers argue that Brexit is not just a political miscalculation, but perhaps the most damaging economic error in modern British history. The UK now faces weaker economic performance than at any time in the past half-century. The cost of living crisis is up, growth has stagnated, and migration, ironically, has increased.
Really? And like, remember, This is non-EU migration. Like most of this is EU because of the freedom of movement. So this went down, and then the non-EU migration has gone way up. How high did you guys get? How high did they get in UK? Because I know under Trudeau we had our own wild spike for a couple of years there. I like that graph.
Rather than fallen. More than £100 billion in annual GDP is estimated to have been lost relative to staying in the EU. The promised economic renaissance has failed to materialise, while the UK's voice on the global stage has diminished by measurable degrees. But what exactly makes Britain regret leaving the European Union? One of the most powerful arguments for Brexit was border control. Supporters promised that leaving the EU would allow the UK to reduce immigration and take back control of its borders. Yet the data tells a completely different story. Channel crossings reached their highest ever levels after Brexit. In 2022, more than 45,000 people crossed the English Channel in small boats, up from just 299 in 2018.
Whoa. It really seems to me like after the Brexit, there was a surge. Like what? You look at the US and the surge of illegal immigration can largely go back to Biden. Biden, and he had like open border policy. And that's what caused a lot of people to commit to come. What triggered the commit to come was like Brexit was supposed to be a movement to control immigration. Why did it get out of control after? Right? Oh, I want to do that comparison. Yeah, that's good. If Brexit was a movement to control immigration, why did immigration get out of control afterward? Then we can make our comparison between the two.
A staggering increase of more than 15,000%.
That's crazy.
Even after temporary decreases, annual arrivals remain well above pre-Brexit norms. In the first 11 months of 2025, more than 39,292 people crossed the English Channel in small boats from France, an increase of approximately
Why are they coming from France? Dude.
6.7%, with 1 month remaining, compared to 36,816 crossings the previous year. This happened because Brexit removed the UK from the Dublin regulation, which
they were removed.
Previously allowed Britain to return asylum seekers to the first EU country they passed through.
So they were part of like a more collective manner of handling immigrants, where if an immigrant came here, they could been like, oh well, you came from Italy, so you go back to Italy, even though you're not from Italy, but that's where you entered the EU. And so that's where you have to like seek asylum or whatever. And as soon as they got cut off from that, their ability to just remove people, the immigrants seeking asylum or refugee status or whatever, their ability to remove them diminished. Right? This is one of the great ironies of modern political history. The short answer Brexit did do what it promised on EU immigration. Yes, you stopped all the EU immigrants. It just opened a much bigger door somewhere else. Here's what actually happened. Brexit delivered on its core promise, sort of. Leave voters wanted to end free movement from the EU, and technically it worked. By 2024, the number of EU origin workers in the UK had returned roughly to its 2016 level. In a counterfactual UK, where Brexit didn't happen, it would have risen by about 30%. That implies Brexit reduced the number of EU origin employees by about 785,000, equivalent to roughly 2.6% of the total UK workforce. So EU immigration fell dramatically. The problem is what happened next. Boris Johnson opened a much bigger door. This is the crux of the paradox. Boris Johnson's government implemented a new immigration system in January 2021, which substantially liberalized the visa regime for non-EU workers as free. So the visa regime for non-EU workers as free movement with the EU ended. So Boris Johnson changed the immigration system to make it easier. So this was the movement, right? Like I was talking about the UK, the United States. Joe Biden was the open borders guy, and his push caused the issue of the illegal immigration. Like it was always an issue, but it's what made it come to the forefront. And so Boris Johnson was the person who did this in the UK. Opened a much bigger door. Most analysts forecast that Brexit would lead to a moderate reduction in overall immigration, with the fall from ending free movement being partially but not wholly offset by the rise in non-EU migration. In fact, immigration rose sharply, with net migration rising to record levels. And the annual cap on skilled workers visa was suspended as part of the new points-based system. The result was a massive surge in non-EU immigration, which has since dominated immigration to the UK. By the year ending June 2025, non-EU nationals accounted for 75% of total immigration, with 670,000 out of 898,000 total immigrants were non-EU. This became so noticeable it earned a nickname. Many commenters referred to the substantial increase in non-EU immigration enabled under the new policies as the Boris wave. So in the United States, they had Joe Biden's open border policy, and in the UK, they had the Boris wave. Why would a government do this? Because the economy needed workers. So Boris Johnson opened the economy up, prevent an economic collapse, right? Like to prevent the numbers from being too bad. And the numbers were already bad. So even their attempts to mitigate the damage still didn't work. they still saw significant productivity drops in the UK. Because the economy needed workers, the UK was facing serious labor shortages in healthcare, agricultural, hospitality, and other sectors, many of which had been filled by EU workers. The sharp rise in the number of migrants can be attributed to the liberalization of migration laws, making it easier for non-EU migrants to work in the UK. A campaign to attract more foreign students and the high number of visas granted to people from Ukraine and Hong Kong on humanitarian grounds. 1/3 of the increase in work visas between 2019 and 2022 consist of Indian nationals. 111,000 visas issued, with substantial increases also for workers from the Philippines and Nigeria. So the UK Brexited. It changed a lot of the laws between the EU and Great Britain, and so you didn't have migration between EU and Great Britain anymore. Significant migration happened outside of the EU. The economic troubles because of the separation caused the current government inside UK, Boris Johnson, to begin issuing visas to bring more workers in to try and fix the economic issues in the country that were caused by Brexit. That was called the Boris Wave. And they ended up with more migrants than they would have had if they had just stayed in the save the economy, which still took significant damage. Okay, the stay put effect. Brexit also had a adverse effect on EU migrants already in the UK. Brexit motivated many Eastern Europeans not so much to go back home as to stay put, because it had become more difficult to temporarily move back to their own country. We saw this when the US essentially made it very difficult for Mexican workers to cross the border and work. They were trying to remove the Mexican workers from their country, but what they did was the Mexicans just stayed in the US. They just stayed. And so you had a bunch of people that they're not UK citizens, but now that UK is Brexited, they didn't leave, they just stayed. They're just kind of stuck there now. Unintentionally stimulating permanent settlement. Before Brexit, EU workers could freely come and go. Once free movement ended, many decided it wasn't worth the risk of leaving, since re-entry would no longer be guaranteed. The numbers tell the story. Well, net migration in the UK was 248,000 in 2016. At the time of the referendum, it was provisionally estimated to be 431,000 in 2024 and had peaked at roughly 860,000 in 2023. That might have been as bad as Trudeau. The deeper problem nobody wanted to admit. The Brexit debate conflated two very separate things: EU immigration and all immigration. Leave voters were largely frustrated with Eastern European EU migrants, specifically Poles, Romanians, Bulgarians, who had arrived in large numbers after the EU expanded in 2004 and 2008. But the points-based system that replaced free movement was nationally blind by design. It treated a Nigerian nurse and a French engineer the same, which sounds fair in principle, but meant the UK lost the relatively frictionless geographical close labor supply from Europe and replaced it with a much larger global one. The central Brexit trade off has always been between sovereign decision making and higher trade and output, while taking back control appears to have been moderately raised employment in Britain so far. Free movement with the EU have brought bigger economic benefit. Free movement with the EU would have brought bigger economic benefit. In short, Brexit gave the UK control over immigration in a legal and political sense, but the government then used that control to increase immigration from the rest of the world, partly by necessity, partly by political choice. The people who voted Leave to see fewer immigrants got a very different outcome than they expected. I mean, like, if you're looking at the Canadian Alberta separatist movement, this is a good summary. The people who voted Leave to see fewer immigrants got a very different outcome than they expected. Like, if this is what we're basing the closest global example we could see to Alberta leaving Canada, none of it looks good. This is not a model I would like to copy. I would say this is a failure. And if we get to choose between copying the failure and not copying, I'd rather not copy the failure. Okay, so let's go through this. So basically comparing Brexit to Alberta leaving Canada. It's a fascinating and very timely comparison, especially given that Alberta separation is actively in the news right now. There are striking parallels, but also some very important differences. I like that. Okay, we're going to look at the differences. Let's go. The core parallel: grievance-driven separation. Both movements share a common emotional engine, a sense that a smaller, resource-rich region is being economically exploited by a larger governing body. Alberta separatism is rooted in Western Canadians' alienation, the perception that Alberta's economic interests and political values are marginalized by federal institutions dominated by central Canada. Brexit was similarly driven by a feeling that the UK was giving more to Brussels than it got back, and losing control of its own laws and borders. Since the equalization program began in 1957, Alberta has not received a single penny in equalization payments. Between 2015 and 2025 alone, the province of Quebec received $129 billion, for which Alberta footed most of the bill. This mirrors the Brexit argument about UK contributing to the EU budget, a financial grievance that was central to the Leave campaign. Like, there certainly is an economic problem there. Like, when we talk about equalization, like, there is an issue with it. If you you want to encourage mobility of labor to where resources are, where jobs are, to where the economy is being developed, right? And I feel equalization goes too far, because like at the levels that they do it in Canada, it doesn't promote people moving. Like if Alberta had a better healthcare than the rest of the country, people would move there, and then they would be able to work in the more productive part of the economy. Um, but equalization, as it says, tries to make services equal throughout all of Canada, and you get into a position where certain provinces, like if they're more profitable, they get less money. And so you're kind of creating an incentive for a province not to develop its own resources or not to develop its own economy. Like I personally would like to see some kind of phase, maybe not phase out, but a phase down of the equalization. Okay, key similarities. The we pay in, others benefit argument. Leave voters argued the UK sent £13 billion annually to the EU. Albertans argue they subsidized the rest of Canada through equalization. In both cases, the financial framing was emotionally powerful but oversimplified. Uncertainty is already costing money. One of Brexit's clearest lessons was that uncertainty itself has a price. And Alberta is already experiencing this. Employment in U.S. dependent sectors in Alberta declined by nearly 18,000 between December 2024 and August 2025, while the rest of the economy experienced growth. These job losses reflect a decline in hiring. Business regulators cite uncertainty as the top concern they are responding. I mean, uncertainty itself has a price. That is very true. A March 2026 poll by the Calgary Chamber of Commerce found that 83% of respondents believe separatist discourse increases the risk of recession and reduces business investment. 74% believe businesses were considering relocation or expansion outside Alberta, and 71% believe it increases difficulty attracting workers. 3. Populist, identity-driven politics. Breakfast was turbocharged by cultural identity politics beyond pure economics. Alberta separatism is benefiting from cross-border political influence, particularly conservative populism imported from the United States, including economic nationalism, resource development, and skepticism towards climate policy. Okay, well, like, I like resource development, and I am skeptical towards climate policy because they have failed many times. You're gonna do climate policies. Give me something that works. Like when you see like, oh yeah, we're protecting this forest and get this carbon rebate, and this forest is like some guy's game ranch that he keeps anyway, and so now he's also selling it as carbon rebates. Like what is that? That's not helping. That system is set up to be abused and to help nobody. I'm skeptical. I mean, resource development is good. I don't mind if we import that one. Let's develop our resources. Yes. Including economic nationalism. I'm usually a fan for nationalism. Let's get a good description. Oh, stop. Fine. Okay. Nationalism is an ideology, movement, or feeling of intense loyalty and devotion to a specific nation or nation state, prioritizing its culture, interests, and sovereignty above others. Like, I am a supporter of that. Like, nationalism built our world. Okay? I don't I don't I don't think going against that is a winning strategy. But like I enjoy all the things that we've imported from the United States. Like it's a good so far it's like take the good things, leave the bad thing. That's how you develop the nation. Take the good ideas from other countries and we leave the bad ideas. Like the Trump coin. We'll let them keep that. uh but like nationalism, resource development and skeptical skepticism towards climate policies. I like all those. But I don't see how any of that leads us to separation either. Key differences. Where Alberta's situation is much more complex. A province, not a country. This is the most fundamental difference. The UK, like, I kind of put this aside in the beginning and just was like, okay, let's say we could separate with a referendum. This is it coming back because you can't separate with a referendum. The UK was a fully sovereign nation with its own military, currency, legal system, and diplomatic relationships. Alberta is a province with no currency, no army, no international standing, and no trade agreements. All would be very big problems. Alberta would need to assume part of the government Canada's debt. Its portion would be 75 to 100 billion. It would need to develop or adopt national currency, negotiate international trade deals from scratch, and would be in a weak position to do so. That, like, I don't think Alberta could survive as an independent nation. Um, like, we don't even have access to an ocean, right? Um, you almost have to be a part of Canada or the US. And if you leave Canada, you would be in a very weak negotiating position with the US. And if you think Trump's not going to take advantage of that, you don't know Trump. He will absolutely take advantage of that. Landlocked, yeah, right here. A massive trade problem. The UK is an island. Oil dependency makes it even riskier. We've seen, like, as Albertans, we've always been a net payer of equalization payments. That doesn't mean that's how it always will be. Like, maybe nuclear takes off and uranium becomes an incredibly important resource. Our country's rich in uranium. I don't know where that is. I don't know what province would make the big income from it, but uh, probably not Alberta. And you could then end up a net receiver of equalization payment. Okay. Where were we? The indigenous rights problem has no Brexit equivalent. That's right. This is arguably the biggest wild card. Treaty laws. Expect Bruce McIvern said Albert would face major pushback from First Nations, arguing they would never give up their land and that separation would violate their treaties with the federal government. Federal transfers would disappear. Major Canadian federal transfers to Alberta. Um, okay, the legal path is murky at best. Basically, it's almost impossible to do, and there's a lot of problems it would make. Yeah, public sentiment. Recent polls suggest separatist sentiment is prevalent in approximately 28% of Albertans. But of those, only 55% are committed. Yeah. Because we looked at that before, saying, like, yeah, separatist sentiments there in about 28% of Albertans. But a large percent of them were, I want change rather than I want to separate. And I can sympathize certainly with that percentage of the group. I do believe that equalization payments are too high and that it isn't incentivizing what we want to incentivize. With another 25% conditional and 20% symbolic. Using independence as a protest more than genuine intent. This mirrors pre-exit polling where many Leave voters underestimated the practical consequences, treated the vote as a protest signal. So, let me get this right. The UK protested themselves into an economic disaster. They saw it as a protest vote. And they got economic disaster as a result. That is not good. Let's understand the consequences of our actions before we take our action. 1/4 of Canadians say Alberta's provincial economy would improve with separation, while 3 in 5 say the impact would be negative. I think it would be massively negative. I think if we left, whatever deal you had figured out with Trump, as soon as you leave Canada, that deal's being renegotiated, and you're now screwed over. And you're looking at lower oil prices, lower productivity, lower everything. Like, we looked at Brexit and how it destroyed the Brexit economy, or the UK economy, and how much damage it did. The damage would be worse for it. Significantly. Like, there's a lot of things that I can get behind. Desire for change, changing the systems. But you can do that without leaving. Look at what happened in the UK. They were a two-party system. They're now a party. Democracy allows you to do these changes. We just need a couple new parties in Canada, or for some of the current parties to get things right. And I think we are seeing this. Both the liberals and the conservatives have become, well, I mean, the conservatives were always more like the whole net zero push. They've kind of pulled back from, and they're far more open to developing energy infrastructure. And that's the liberals are becoming far more open to that, and you see them reducing like immigration targets as well, because that was what was popular. This says it: anti-woke, anti-immigration, anti-net zero. We see the liberals moving away from that one. We see slight movement away from that one. Anti-woke, woke covers to talk about. But I think they are moving away from that one too. Both parties are. So I'm not sure if we'll see a fracturing like we see here. But yeah. Where was I? The bottom line. Let's continue. Brexit offers Alberta a cautionary tale more than a blueprint. The UK had very structural advantage a separating entity could want. Okay, the UK had every structural advantage a separating entity could want. Sovereignty, a currency, international relationships, ports, ports, a diversified economy, and it still took a significant, lasting economic hit that experts now estimate at 6 to 8% of GDP. Alberta would be starting from a far weaker position, landlocked, oil dependent, legally uncharted, and facing serious indigenous rights complications that fracture the territory itself. The grievance driving the movement are real and politically legitimate, but as Brexit showed, the gap between the promise of independence and the reality of it can be enormous, and the cost accumulate slowly and quietly long after the vote is like. That's why I think we shouldn't leave. Sum it up. Oh, yo, I missed it. What's going on? I was too busy talking. Still there? Yeah. No, I think he's. I gotta be quicker with that one. Maybe I should move that pick. That's so wise. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna take a break for a couple minutes. We'll grab a drink and then I'll be back. I wanted to. I think I'm gonna look into this a little bit more. I don't see a time on those. All right, be right back. All right. So, can you give me a list of the expected benefits and negatives of Alberta separation? Like, just give me pros and cons. Pros. Alberta separation. That I want here. Okay. Hey, you can see the mic. Okay, so I want to list out pros and cons, you know, for Alberta separation, and we're going to try and put it into a chart format. Take some. Okay, so pros. Alberta separation. See if that felt correct. Luckily. And then Canada. All right, we're just gonna fix some of these. How big do I got? 4 centimeters. We're gonna create a little rubric. So low importance. We're gonna assign values. 1. Important. 2. 5. 4. The important. Still got it. 4, and then like a core make or break. So we want value to here, back 1. This is just going to be the value. That's going to be the value. So we're going to have idea and then value. We're going to add the values up so that at the end you get a very good weight for the cons, weight for the pros. And that's might want to do this reason bigger. I don't know. I assume I'm going to need these as columns for something, which is why I've left it blank. All right. Okay. Save put it with our document. Call this like template. So we got our template saved. Let's go have a look at pros and cons. The separation stay with Canada comes out at. Okay. We still got music going. See it. Yeah, we're good. Okay, the chat overlay audio always gets because there's never anything there. Okay. Based on the research already gathered, here's a comprehensive breakdown. Perfect. Arguments in favor. The pro case. Keep Alberta's wealth in Alberta. The most emotionally powerful argument. 88% of Albertan separatists cite the desire to exit equalization as a reason for their support. Like, I agree with this to an extent. I don't think exit equalization, I don't see equalization itself as bad. But I do see the current implementation of it leading to bad effect. Like, the equalization itself should be lower. Just in my opinion, you should cut back the amount of equalization to encourage provinces to become more productive rather than depending on the entity of Canada to give them money. But completely getting rid of it, it was created for a reason. That reason still exists. I just think they've created some negative incentives along with that are hurting the economy greatly. And so I definitely sympathize with this one. Albertans represent about 11.5% of the population, but contribute around 1/6 of all federal revenues. Separatists argue that money would no longer flow east and could instead fund Alberta's own services and tax. So I like this one. Based the whole. So keeping Alberta's wealth in Alberta. Like, that's important. There's so many issues with it. Like, but I think that fact I like and I can support. I don't think leaving would do that. But I can get behind that point. Control over energy policy. Alberta's oil and gas industry has long felt strangled by federal environmental regulations and pipeline decisions made in Ottawa. An independent Alberta could set its own energy policy without federal interference, potentially unlocking faster development. Like, this is another one that we seen how in the UK they've created new political parties. These are all things that would be very good at developing a political party around, rather than trying to separate. I think a far more effective method to accomplish the separatists' goals would be to create a political party within Canada. Because that's what's working in the UK. That's what happened. And so picking out certain winning ideas, in fact, I think some of these are faster development and export growth, control over energy policy, like that is important, but I don't see that one as important because I see the Canadian government leaning in this direction already. They're already coming to where we are. I think we should continue the transition, make the transition quicker, but I think we can do that through the democracy, not separation. Okay. Political self-determination. Alberta separatist is rooted in the perception that Alberta's economic interest and political values are marginalized. Under Trudeau, they were. I'm just not gonna lie, they were. By federal institutions dominated by central Canada. Supporters argue Alberta's voters are structurally irrelevant in federal elections. And so were Quebec voters. They just changed that. Now that Bloc party can usually play kingmaker to one of the two political parties. Like, you can change that. Since Ontario and Quebec together hold enough seats to determine outcome. Well, I mean, they're definitely more populous. Building. Oh, wait, I gotta do this. Political self-determination. I mean, I'm someone who would far rather improve the system we're currently a part of than try to make a new system. Could make a new party that could then improve the system, and I think you would be surprised. Like, I'll keep going back to it, but Reform UK, they're up from nothing to the biggest party in the UK, and they ran off anti-woke, anti-immigrant, and anti-net. Like, anti-net zero, that comes over like perfectly to wanting to develop oil and other forms of energy. That one comes over perfect. Anti-woke is more of a cultural thing. Anti-immigration, as far as I understand, like, that one's also a one-to-one, and this works as a political party for a country, and it works very well. Why don't we just go this way? I mean, separation. Let's just. Like, I don't see separation as fixing the problems you want. Building new trade relationships. Supporters argue an independent Alberta can negotiate trade deals tailored. Like, you wouldn't be independent for long. As a landlocked nation, the odds are you're going to be heavily dependent on Canada or the US. And given that you just broke apart from Canada, you're going to be heavily dependent on the US. You wouldn't really be independent. You can negotiate trade deals tailored to its energy-heavy economy, potentially striking better arrangements with the US, Asia, and other Canadian generalists. That one's a 0. That one's not even going on the list. So what do we have for separation? Keeping Alberta's wealth in Alberta. I mean, that's just... I like that one. You know... Control over energy policy. That's good. But I feel you can accomplish that with a political party better. I feel the Canadian government is actually coming over on that one. To their control over energy policy is more mirroring Alberta's is. Political self-determination. We live in a democracy. You just gotta convince people your view is right. And I think you'll find Canadians are Canadians pretty much all across the country. It's not that hard. I keep bringing it up because this is something that felt. Think of something like this happening in the U.S., where their two-party system breaks apart into a five-party system. This is what we just seen in the UK, and I think it's a good thing. There's more parties, there's more representation, there's more freedom of ideas and thought. I don't think it's going to happen in the US, but like maybe Canada could have more parties. It was crazy because you essentially had a far right and a far left party come out of nowhere and be quite successful. Specifically the far right. Okay, well, it's giving me far more cons, which is not what I want. But I guess if there is more, there is more. What was the final one? Building new trade like. I want to try that. Alright, stay in Canada. What do we got? Immediate economic contraction. Not to mention the economic contraction that you will see over time. The most credible economic estimate is sobering. University of Calgary economist Trevor Tombry estimates an independent Alberta would see the economic contraction of about 4%, around 3,900 annually in lost wealth per person. And remember, like, that 4% was what they called Brexit. Brexit continuing to have bigger negative effects. That the immediate economic and protracted economic contraction, I think that one is probably the most important thing that the average person would feel in their life. As a Alberta citizen, Canadian, as an Albertan, or an Albertan if you separate, that is what you would feel most. Loss of federal transfers. Alberta gets more from Canada than just equalization. In 2025-2026, major Canadian federal transfers to Alberta included a 6.6 billion Canadian health transfer and 2.1 billion Canada social transfer. Alberta would also need to assume part of the government of Canada's debt. Like the whole idea is that you gain control of this. Even if you lost federal transfers, you're still like Alberta still sends more to the government. So in the end, you just have to allocate this yourself. I don't think that one goes up. Landlocked problem. Oh my goodness, would that be a problem? That would be a huge problem. That's what makes you dependent on Canada or the US. This is arguably the single biggest structural flaw in the separatist economic vision. An independent Alberta would need to negotiate corridors through foreign lands in order to get goods to market. Every pipeline, rail line, and railway to a port would run through either British Columbia, Saskatchewan, or the United States. All foreign countries. That's enormous leverage for neighbors to extract consent. Now that one is any kind of exit would almost require BC as well, because you need access to the ocean for all trade. Oil dependency is a long-term risk. I mean, there are places that have done it and done it well and have avoided the what is it? Dutch disease. I'm dependent on a specific resources. At the same time, most places get it wrong. And given the fact that the current Alberta government doesn't have like a sovereign wealth fund, I'm gonna guess just because they become Alberta doesn't mean they're gonna make one. And they're not gonna suddenly become better at finance. I expect they'd probably be worse. Long-term risk. That's important. Is I think they definitely ordered these. Currency and credit rating issues. Alberta would need to develop or adopt a national currency. It would face higher debt interest rates due to worse credit rating. A new untested sovereign nation without established currency or credit history would face borrowing costs far higher than Canada currently pays. That's something I haven't even thought of. And it sounds bad. Currency and credit rating issues. Losing the currency. That is bad. I mean, you can work through those. That still sucks. Indigenous rights, a potential unsolvable problem. This may be the most legally complex obstacle. Indigenous communities have made it clear that the treaties they signed are with the Crown, not with Alberta. If Alberta separates, Indigenous land could be bisected by international borders, impeding mobility rights. Treaty law expert Bruce McIver said Alberta would face pushback from First Nations arguing they would never give up their land. That separation would violate their treaties with the federal government. Yeah, I think we're just kind of assuming this issue wasn't there for the whole point of this, but that issue is definitely also there. Indigenous rights would be a problem. Like that makes it hard to separate. much more than a reason against it, right? Like if we're just looking at the pure, why would you vote to stay? Why would you vote to go? Uncertainty. Oh my. I forgot about that one. That's a huge. That's a huge one. Like uncertainty gets you in so many ways. And leaving Canada would cause so much uncertainty. Uncertainty is already costing money. Before anything happens, just like Brexit, the threat of separation has economic consequences. A March 2026 poll by the Calgary Chamber of Commerce found 83% of respondents believe separatists disclose increase the risk of recession and reduce business investment. 74% believe businesses were considering relocating or expanding outside Alberta. 71% believe it increased difficulty attracting workers. Like uncertainty is so bad. So much of modern economy, the modern economic system requires certainty to function. U.S. pressure to absorb Alberta. Nearly half of Canadians say the U.S. would definitely try to economically and politically pressure Alberta to join a new state. And remember, like, they would have leverage, with another third saying it would probably happen. If Alberta left Canada, it would probably be forced to join the U.S. An independent, landlocked, oil-rich Alberta would be extraordinarily vulnerable to American economic growth. U.S. pressure to absorb Alberta. You don't get separation. I don't like for a causal factor. I don't think that the legal path is uncharted. Provinces cannot unilaterally. you can't actually do it. This is that. In the end, you can't unilaterally make the decision. But like if we're just looking at the if you're voting, like if you could do it, why, what are the reasons for doing it? Right? That's kind of what we're going for. The Brexit lesson that looms over all of this. The con list is long and structural, while the pro list is largely emotional and speculative. Almost exactly the dynamic that played out with Brexit. The Leave campaign made bold promises about reclaimed wealth and sovereignty. The reality was a slow burning economic cost that most Britons now regret. Alberta separatists are making strikingly similar arguments, but with a far weaker starting position than the UK. Okay, how do we add these here? Pull some. No, stop. I want to go back. Pull some. Okay, equal sum. Do not close the bracket. Now close. Why are you? I want out of this now. Exit. A long time since I want you to add that. Enter. Ooh, there we go. Enter. Stay with Canada. All right, can we graph this? Insert. Chart. Chart wizard. I want. Why are the bars named the same way? What if we pie graphed it? Of pi? No. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we gotta rearrange this. We have 7. We have 19. What if we chart it like I gotta know how to. Ooh, so much better. So Alberta separation. Again, stay with Canada. This is my personal chart. I like that. That's how we have to have it up. Chart system. Grab the chart as a whole. Perfect. That's my consideration. For a separation and stay with Canada. And honestly, I don't think this, like, as it said, this is more emotional argument. This is more structural argument. And the whole stay with Canada still won. So, as for in the very beginning, there was a question I wish to answer. Where was it? I've closed it. 2 dislikes on are really emotional about this separation issue. So 300,000. So why stay? This is my response. Like, the reasons to leave are emotional. The reasons to stay are systematic, built in. In the end, there'd be absolute economic contraction, probably underrepresented. The landlocked problem means we would be at the mercy of Canada. Oil dependency generally isn't handled well long term by most nations, and I don't think they're handling the profits from oil particularly well in Alberta right now. Currency and credit rating issue. Well, just currency itself, like, use the Canadian dollar. You're not. Indigenous rights would just pose huge problems. Uncertainty, if anything, that should be up higher. Uncertainty is a killer. Like, it just is. And there's no way the US doesn't pressure us. You end up as part of Canada. Like, the reasons to stay far outweigh the reasons to leave. I do understand the reason. Like, a lot of it is very similar to what we see in Brexit. But you look at the results of Brexit, it didn't go well. And we don't have our own currency. We don't have our own ocean access. It would go poor for Albertans. Now, I understand, like, a lot of the people oh no, we're gonna find it. A lot of the people that support the separatist movement, um, it's more a support for change. Once you explain the consequences of actually separating, they're like, no, there's something wrong. We want to communicate there's something wrong. Um, and I don't think like separation won't fix what's wrong. I personally hope we can take a different path that the UK took, which is their democracy becoming far more representative of the people by splitting different parties. And so you get different ideas and different representations here. I don't know if we'll see something like that in Canada, but I don't think you'd see something like that in the UK either. Right? Anyway, that sums up what I wanted to cover. For Alberta separatism. If we get more comments, maybe we'll do another deep dive. Maybe someone will bring up a point I missed. But it feels very emotional, like the initial Brexit. Like the initial Brexit push. Which, I mean, protests voted themselves into a horrible economic situation. Oh, like let's not do that. I don't think that worked well. Yeah. All right. Oh, desktop audios. Oh, maybe not long. All right, we have to cut here. I'm mad. That one dragged on. Maybe I'll split that one up into parts. Upload. Yeah, but the Alberta separatism one, that's well, that's why we're doing a follow up, right? People care about. I don't know if they'll like my take on it. But like no matter how I do the math, it's a bad decision. Okay. Let's watch a video. Where were we? I liked CoffeeZilla. Upper echelon. Have a look. No. No. Back to YouTube. Upper echelon. Ooh, one of the ones I haven't subscribed to. Have a look. 4 days ago, so we can watch any of them. It will be 17 times worse than the .com crash. So I'm assuming this is the AI bubble that they're talking about here. 17 times worse. I don't know. The time travel, no, don't care. The kill switch problem. Ooh, for cars. Like when you digitalize so much stuff in a car, like it's not even just a kill switch, it's you could take over people's steering. You're not far off from that. Remember the metaverse? I mean, like, no, I don't remember the metaverse. Did it ever actually exist? Do not stop talking about Epstein. Broken AI. Okay, well we're gonna watch the AI scary one. So, uh it will be 17 times worse than the dot-com crash by upper echelon. Here we go.
This video is brought to you by Clean My Mac. Stick around to hear more about the special offer they're providing to the entire upper echelon community. The current AI bubble, so to speak, that we're experiencing right now is 17 times larger than the dot-com crash of the 19.
I know there's some real circular investments going on where you have big company gives other big company huge sums of money, or a promise of huge sums of money, promises a big contribution here, and they promise a big contribution here, and that promises it back, and you got a circle, and then all of a sudden, because they've all promised each other so much money, their valuations go way up. And then so they promised each other more money, and then the evaluations go. They promise each other more money, and the valuation higher. I think there's kind of been a sobering moment where they've cut back a lot of the just rampant paper investment that they were doing to something more realistic. Which is still like it's still crazy, but I don't think you've seen the devaluation.
90s.
Yeah.
It's 4 times larger than the subprime mortgage crisis in 2008, which
Ooh. Like, let's just be honest. There is an AI bubble. It is going to pop. And from that, you will find the giant. The ones that survive will become the giants that dictate the next step for humanity, the next direction of humanity in the AI age, until we find the next thing that bubbles. We just keep doing it.
contributed to it.
Right now, the AI bubble gives you basically AI for free. Very good. It makes charts now. I like it. I like that step up. and I get that for free because of the AI bubble. I will be sad when that goes away and I have to pay for it.
Once the UK
Oh, I've gotten the wrong video.
A global Great Recession, and if what these companies are doing is allowed to continue when the music stops and the money goes dry, it will threaten the economic stability of half the planet. My source for that, by the way, is an analyst named Julian Guerin, referencing the work of early 19th century economist Knut Wicksell.
Wait. He's saying that when the bubble pops, half the planet.
Companies are doing is allowed to continue when the music stops and the money goes dry, it will threaten the economic stability of half the planet. My source for that, by the way, is an analyst named Julian Guerin, referencing the work of early 19th century economist Knut Wicksell, who pioneered a theory about the misallocation of capital. But this isn't supposed to be an episode about economic history, don't worry, because the practical demonstration that I want to focus on right now is what certain companies are actually doing at the moment, and how that behavior is a lockstep replica of what's now occurred 3 separate times across the past 3 decades, each time wiping out the savings of everyday people who typically don't even fully understand why or how it ended up happening to them at all.
Like, definitely some people will not be positioned well.
Let me start with this, all right? Allbirds. Allbirds is a shoe company, a failing shoe company for that matter. Initially going public shortly after COVID, the pandemic, with a stock price of well over $500 at the time, it has since dropped by nearly 99% in a state of pretty much free fall. The business has only ever lost money, wasted almost $500 million on aggressive retail expansion or new product lines, and yet instead of simply going bankrupt like a regular company, Allbirds decided to make one last final desperate attempt at fleecing their investors by suddenly rebranding themselves under the direction of new management, it seems, as an AI infrastructure play. These two things have nothing to do with each other. A shoe company is effectively grabbing the change from under the couch cushions and pretending that this somehow gives them the option of competing with Amazon. But no matter how ridiculous the decision itself might seem to be, the reaction it received from the public is even worse. After this ridiculous
Do I just have to make like an AI company? Like, just something dumb. Put AI on it.
rebrand that has nothing to do with the core business, by the way, after the rebrand, the share price for Allbirds, the stock price, increased by almost 1,000%.
That's
People
wild.
were practically begging to throw their money away, and not because of actual potential, not because of revolutionary technology,
Like, it's not
but
gonna.
because a shoe company
There is so much stupid money. There's so much stupid money in it. Just is.
said, now we're an AI technology firm. It doesn't really get any more ridiculous than that. Sadly, Allbirds wasn't even alone in this. Shortly after they demonstrated how easy it was and is, another company called Mycium did the exact same thing.
I mean, to be fair, look at what happened. Like, you do it, you get the spike, and then it's on a slow decline. Like, this almost has the pattern of pump and dump Bitcoin. Like, you buy up all the stock here, you change it to AI, be like, oh yeah, we're changing to an AI firm, and then you sell up here in this range. Even if you're selling here, like, it's still incredible profit, right? So this is just someone using a dying business to make their money by the AI hype, because this is just going to keep going down until it's back here now. Business is not fixed, it doesn't do anything.
Another company called Mycium did the exact same thing. This time, at least they already operated in the world of social media, but renaming your company Mycium AI doesn't actually change anything, and yet, simply because of this new name, the stock price rose by almost 400.
Okay. Elevation AI. Ooh. I like the sounds of that. I do use AI. Will that trend more? Will that be better?
Here's the problem. Not only is the AI bubble itself grossly larger than any prior financial bubble in human history, it's also now demonstrating the exact same red flags, the exact same corporate greed, and the precise atmosphere that we've seen multiple times in past decades, so much so that by the end of the video, if I haven't managed to convince you that AI is an unignorable Titanic-level economic iceberg,
it is. And yet, when the bubble pops, there will be a new Google, assuming Google doesn't win. That is, like, your titans will survive the bubble popping, and they will become so much bigger, and they will get so much more power. Like, as much as you can tell people it's a bubble, explain to people that it's a bubble, in the end they think they're betting on the winner, and it's a good bet. Like, if you do get the winner, then just statistically, if you'd gotten into Google even before like the .com bubble popped, it was still a good bet. It was still a good investment because of what happened afterward. Now, most people, I don't know who's going to win the AI race. I don't know if anyone knows who's going to win the AI. If artificial general intelligence exists, then it's whoever gets there first. But so far, models seem to be incredibly easy to copy, or to train your model off of a better model is significantly cheaper than building your own model. So I don't know how that leads into someone winning, but there's also going to be a lot of losing when the bubble pops. The whole economy is going to lose. A lot of the people in it are going to lose. But some will win. People think they're the one that's going to win. So, I don't think you can stop it. We're just waiting for the pop event.
I want you to actively press dislike.
And then I will miss my free AI.
Tech trends, at least lately, feel like they're happening at the speed of light. The newest AI models, the latest device technology, whatever it happens to be, the pacing gets faster and faster. Except for most people, that sort of frantic pacing doesn't actually carry over to their personal computer or their Mac. A lot of people out there, probably the majority now that I think about it, work with older hardware. I'm one of those people as well, by the way. And when you're in that type of situation, you can't be worrying about performance issues or storage problems. Do not rush to throw something away, especially a Mac or a PC, just because it isn't keeping up with you and your standards. Honestly, this runs contrary to the whole consumerism culture. It's all about throwing away the old stuff and getting the new flashy thing, but do not do that, because for anyone who's looking to remedy the problem of speed, efficiency, and storage, today's video sponsor, Clean My Mac, is here to help.
Oh.
Clean My Mac quietly clears junk.
I bet you there's a lot of people that have this problem. Like, this product is created for a certain type of person. I ran into the whole data hard drive complete collapse, and all of a sudden you lose all of it, all of the data. And now I got multiple hard drives that run. I don't remember which RAID it is, but just two hard drives that are data is mirrored on each other, so that I never have that issue again. I figured that out a couple of years ago. But that's more data storage. This, some people use their computers. They don't know how to keep them clean and updated and running quickly. So I imagine
It kills background process resource hogs. It frees up space so you can download larger files or video games seamlessly. And it does all of this so that you can use your device without constantly having to babysit it. Yes, you can clean things yourself, which takes a lot of time, but the diagnostic map tools called Space Lens can do it far better, showcasing the sort of invisible...
This is the other thing. Like, there's a new series of AIs coming out that are like computer assistants. And I'm not sure how I feel about this new generation. I like limited AI. I'm not
weight
sure I'm
that
into
programs
that.
have, and helping speed up, clean out, and rehab your system to its maximum performance level. There's a whole bunch more features as well, such as the cloud cleanup function, which can be linked.
But that's what they say, right? Like, soon computers will be. I mean, AI is going to be able to do pretty much what a person can do with a computer.
Your existing accounts, but for right now, if you want to get started today and tidy up your system with a substantial discount in the process, you can use the link down below and try 7 days for free using code UPPER for 20% off. Again, link down below, 7 days free and code UPPER for 20% off to check out Clean My Mac today and bring your Mac back up to the standard it should be at. Big thank you to Clean My Mac for sponsoring the channel. Okay, back to it. Allbirds rebrands and rises by 1,000%. Mycium follows suit and rises by 400%. But what if I told you that this isn't some sort of novel concept? It's not a brand new thing.
No,
all the way back in 2018 during the
blockchain
craze.
Like I said, there's a whole industry of meme coin that do this, and they're using these businesses essentially like you would use a meme coin.
This time, the SEC was actually pretty clear about how the process should be treated. Speaking in Washington, D.C., then Chairman Jay Clayton, in a speech, said, quote, "Before I move on to the next topic, I want to raise one more narrow distributed ledger or blockchain-related legal issue by means of a hypothetical. I doubt anyone in this audience thinks it would be acceptable for a public company with no meaningful track record in pursuing the commercialization of distributed ledger or blockchain technology to 1. Start to dabble in blockchain activities, 2. Change its name to something like Blockchains R Us, And 3, immediately offer securities without providing adequate disclosure to Main Street investors about those changes and the risks involved. End quote.
Bro, our shoe company's going under. You know what to do. We shall call it Shoe AI and make all the money before completely abandoning it.
Honestly, that's very reasonable. That makes complete sense. Seeing
and
a trend,
like, it worked. It worked twice. they just went, yeah, we not deal with AI, and then they got a bunch of money. I don't understand it.
and renaming your entire company with no realistic expectation of ever succeeding in that new space, simply to then become an investment vehicle under that new banner and run away with tens of millions of dollars in investor capital, isn't exactly a healthy free market technique. And yet, at the risk of over politicizing the video, the current United States governing agencies do not seem to care about white collar crime anymore.
No, they don't.
Let's go back in time, because to understand
they basically allow white collar crime.
the present, you have to understand the past. How many people have ever heard of a company called Long Island Iced Tea? Anyone? Maybe yes, maybe no. But
maybe you gotta like give them money to one of Donald Trump's children so that they can be like a partial investor, or so they can just like be on the board and like talk to Trump for you. But no problems occur. But pretty much you can just get away with it.
Even
now,
if you haven't heard of it, back in 2017, shortly after receiving a NASDAQ delisting notice, because they were a failing company even then, this beverage manufacturer decided, let's become a crypto company. Except they had no actual intention of becoming a crypto company. Just like Allbirds, the shoe company, they pledged some money, changed their name. Instead of Long Island Iced Tea, they were now Long Blockchain, and the share price rose by like 300%. You can see it right here with the massive volume spike. Of course, that's not all they wanted to do. Immediately after they spiked the share price with nothing but a name change, they did a 1.6 million share common stock sale, thereby raising a whole bunch of money, like I think $8 million plus, from unsuspecting retail investors, which had basically nothing to do with the company itself, because they eventually were delisted from the NASDAQ, and then they got hit by a subpoena from the SEC. So, just well done, guys.
So it didn't go well for them.
Total and complete failure on that one. Long story short, the beverage company that decided let's pretend to be a blockchain crypto company unceremoniously failed. As if that's even surprising.
Yeah, but did they get to make their money and take their money out? Like, if they got to make their money and take the money out, then it's going to happen again. And given that's happening again, I'm going to say that they're probably successful in extracting value from the dead company.
But to really drive the point home fully, they weren't even the only drink company back then to do this. A Chinese firm called Sky People Fruit Juice suddenly renamed itself as a financial technology company, and purely because of rampant, wild, unhinged speculation, the stock price went up like 200%. Because what if it's about Bitcoin? The story is actually pretty simple when you start to look at things with a historical lens. Right now, 2026, companies are simply rebranding with no credible business infrastructure or foundation supporting them, and seeing ridiculous valuations because of that. Back in 2017, same exact thing. Drink companies at the time saying, oh my god, blockchain, and spiking 2, 3, 400% in their share price. But even further back, as in the early 2000s during the dot-com crash, the same precise thing was happening. This time leaving a veritable graveyard of names, because most of these companies could not justify their valuations. In the dot-com situation, there were hundreds...
Like, I don't think producing a long, viable company is the goal. The goal is to spike the stock price, take your payout, and then just let the company die. And in that, these seem to be quite successful. Take a dying company, put AI in its name, spike the price, take your payout, then the company dies. It was dying anyway, right? So it was cheap. And look at the peak gains. That one is insane. Peak price. Okay.
Hundreds of companies doing this all at the same time. A post-mortem of the crash found that simply adding .com to the name of a company created, on average, a 74% stock appreciation, like stock rise, for no other reason aside from internet big, money go up, aka just totally delusional hype. Remember, the
AI hype is bigger.
bubble, okay, and it is a bubble that we're experiencing right now, as per the Wixel spread of misallocated capital, is 17 times larger than the .com crash, which again had ripple effects across the entire world. And if you then look at the parallel catalyst of how that bubble popped in the first place, it gets even better. The simple version is that the .com crash was heavily preceded by infrastructure overinvestment. Companies
We following the exact same playbook for the AI bubble. We following the exact same playbook. Infrastructure overinvestment. I hear that OpenAI has cut back the amount of data centers they're going to build. Can you give me more data? Like I hear they significantly cut that back. We're gonna let that.
These were racing to build massive fiber optic networks, anticipating that overall traffic online would double every 100 or so days, culminating in a scenario where
I mean, like, you can say what you like, but look at the internet now. I'm sure it's grown bigger than what people expected at the time of the bubble. I can almost guarantee it's bigger now than what people expected at the time of the bubble. They couldn't have imagined, social media companies to become these kinds of giants. And that's like, what's the AI really gonna be? I don't care if you spam the chat. As soon as you say that, like, I'm not gonna go there. That's not how you do it. I assume that's just a bot. Got down over here. Okay.
most of these companies couldn't justify their valuations despite owning a tremendous amount of infrastructure.
Yeah, but like, just imagine we're investing in Google.com. Imagine, or Facebook. When you invested in one of the ones that succeeded. That's what drives a bubble. People will make a lot of money off the AI bubble.
Behind them because they simply weren't making money.
Most will not. I see it like gambling. It's not a good idea to be in the AI bubble. Most people will be hurt when it pops, and I will lose my free AI, which will suck.
The result of that bubble obviously was catastrophe. And if you now draw a comparison between the 1990s .com craze and the mid-2020s AI craze, what you see is almost the exact same thing. For starters, the relative consumer interest in large language models is declining. At an enterprise level, as in big businesses,
Wait, what's declining?
is declining. C is almost the exact same thing. For starters, the relative consumer interest in large language models is declining.
I mean, like, I don't see that. The whole, and I'm not sure it's a good thing, but the whole like interpersonal AI element that's coming up, like the AI girlfriend, AI boyfriend, that I see massive untapped demand in that space. Not good, but given how we kind of like gave up on protecting people from gambling, I don't think there're going to be any meaningful regulation. And so I feel there's a massive untapped demand.
At an enterprise level, as in big businesses, it's declining as well, because the
Really?
quality and speed of work assisted by language models doesn't necessarily justify the cost. The pilot programs
I
are
mean,
mostly
like,
failing.
yeah, there's definitely bugs that you got to work out through, right? But like for me personally, one thing I use AI for is just thumbnail design for YouTube. Very good at that. You give it images, tell it to design a thumbnail based off the images from your stream. It does a really good job. It does a really good job. Like it's not as good as a person, but it's acceptable, and you could do it in a prompt. And so like that's replacing a job. Um I'm not in a position where I'd ever hire someone for that, but if I was a larger streamer, that is something that you would hire people to do, thumbnail design, and that job just got replaced. In my opinion, it's close to doing better. So what we see here, like the amount of jobs that are done with computers is enormous, and we're seeing AI get better and better at everything done with computers. So he's taken a far more doomer look at AI, I think. And like when the bubble pops, it's going to be devastating. Devastating for a lot of people. But those that get through it and survive as AI companies are likely to determine the future direction of, and that's a lot of power. There's a
Is
lot
what I'm
of
saying.
power for
But at the
up for
same
stakes.
time, initially reported by Bloomberg, half of all US planned data centers are either delayed or canceled outright.
Oh yeah, this is the exact thing I was looking up here. Yes, there's quite a bit happening on this front. Rundown of key developments. Stargate, UK paused. OpenAI has paused plans to roll out a series of data centers across the UK. Texas expansion scrapped. Overall compute spending cut back. Financial pressures behind the decision. OpenAI has never made a profit due to extremely high cost of running its AI platform and limited monetization. Only about 5% of ChatGPT users are paying subscribers. With around 860 million users, the service for free. Short, it's a combination of factors: high energy costs, regulatory hurdles, and the sheer financial strain of scaling AI infrastructure that are forcing OpenAI to pull back on some of its more ambitious data center plan. So this is the whole promising each other things on paper, and then it doesn't doesn't come out in real. Are any AI companies profitable on the AI department? Because one of the going to Gemini because I'm kind of looking for data on Claude here as well, but I don't know how this will do. Because you look at somewhere like Google, and they've got so much capital from search engine, all their other business, advertising business, that they can run a loss a lot longer than another company. And the general playbook is when there's a new thing, like let's look at which one? Taxis? No. Airbnb. Airbnb. You look at Airbnb, the goal is you get market share. Once you find the demand in something like Airbnb, you get market share. You offer a good deal for people to use the service and a good deal for people to provide the service. And so it's a good deal for users, a good deal for the producers. Everyone uses it. They flood in. You get your market share. Then you inshittify. You make it less of a good deal to use, less of a good deal for the producers. But where are you gonna go? Can't go anywhere else. We are the market now. We can do what we want, and you then shitify until you can make your money. That is the goal. And so this is what I assume is happening in AI right now. They're trying to get market share. They're trying to provide you a good service, and not you don't have to pay for it. Good deal for you. The issue, in my opinion, is that an AI model is very easy to train off another AI model. So you make progress to get all your market share, and then your competitor makes that much progress as well because they just train their model off your model. And so that kind of prevents a monopoly from showing up. And that's how it's been happening so far. And I don't know how you get the market share in that case. As of May 2026, the AI industry has reached a shovel versus gold paradox. The companies selling the infrastructure, the shovels, are seeing record-breaking profit. Oh. So if you're selling the infrastructure, you're seeing a lot of profit. While the companies building the models are generally still operating at a significant loss despite massive revenue growth. But this is the thing, there is massive revenue in some of them. Here's a breakdown of who's actually turning a profit. The shovel sellers, Nvidia, I mean, of course they're making profit. TSMC, yep. A semiconductor company. Cloud providers. Microsoft, Google, Amazon. And billions on R&D. Their cloud AI services have become massive profit engines. Microsoft recently reported that AI contributed 16 points to Azer's overall growth. The cloud providers are seeing profits. The cash burners. OpenAI, Anthropic, similar to OpenAI. Probably that's massive. Okay, so places like this are actually burning money. But there are people making a lot of money. The vertical quiet winners, A new tier of profitable AI companies emerging in late 2025 and early 2026. These are companies that don't build the models but integrate them into specific high-value industries. Palantir, frequently cited as one of the few software-first AI companies that is consistently profitable, driven by its AIP artificial intelligence platform used by governments and defense sectors. Oh. Something tells me I should look in to what they're doing. Add that to the list. We talked about the Britain election. Move that one. Alberta separatism we also covered. Well, that one did well, so we're going to leave it down here. Something I'll come back to, depending on what. Okay, Palantir. Okay, specialized SaaS companies like Astra Labs, connectivity for AI data centers, and Dell, AI optimized servers, have seen explosive earnings growth, while Astra Labs on pace for nearly $3 per share profits 2026. Summary table. Bottom line, if you define an AI department as the team building the brain, the model, almost no one is profitable. If you define it as a team building the body, the servers, chips, and cloud hostings, they are currently some of the most profitable businesses in history. That's because of what they think the brain is going to be able to do. Wow. I mean, I don't know about getting into, we see the profits here, the servers, the chips, and cloud hosting. But the actual model is not. But you've seen it in Anthropic has had let me look. Anthropic. Because like I think they've seen explosive growth. Annualized revenue 100 million, 1 billion, 9 billion, 30 estimate. Oh, well, let's go with what we know. They 10x'd, they almost 10x'd. They lost. They lost about 2 billion. They lost about 5 billion, and they lost about 11 billion. Their expenses are growing faster than their profit. Well, not faster, but like their profits are 10xing, and their costs are slightly more than doubling. Claude Code and Enterprise Co-work tools, launch of Claude 3 family. So if their losses are just slightly more than doubling, your profits are 10xing, then they're estimated to be profitable in 2026. I mean, there's definitely potential invested into the brain too.
because of power restrictions, component shortages, and financial drawbacks, which is eerily similar in terms of overhyped infrastructure when compared to the dot-com bust. It's not precisely identical necessarily. There are some differences. A lot of these AI companies who are engaging in what's called circular finance as they invest in each other around and around like a pinwheel, or maybe a better analogy would be a snake eating its own tail. A lot of these companies do have some sort of revenue somewhere, but the scraps that they earn pale in comparison to their spending, because the goal isn't to make a sustainable business. The goal is to get the valuation astronomically high, execute a public offering in some cases, and then everybody on...
Like that's what they're talking about with the, what is it? Chat GPT IPO?
On the inside...
What AI company was looking at going public? I think it was ChatGPT. Okay, the IPO for market for AI companies has shifted. The big two. So OpenAI and Anthropic. Often describes OpenAI as most direct rival. Anthropic is also targeting a late 2026 IPO. Their private valuation recently hit 380 billion following a massive 30 billion funding run in February 26. So OpenAI, so ChatGPT, and Anthropic, which is Claude, are both looking at going public. Like I heard a lot of stuff like the valuations of these companies are so high that going public would cause problem throughout the entire market. Targeting a valuation near 1 trillion. Is that it? We should make it the largest IPO in history. Something told me they were going bigger. I guess 1 trillion is a lot of money.
Gets rich. It doesn't really matter what happens to the bubble afterward, as long as you cash out before it pops at the expense.
Would an AI company going public have effects on the rest of the stock market? What about would those effects be? Okay. I want to re-listen to what he just said.
Everybody on the inside gets rich. It doesn't really matter what happens to the bubble afterward, as long as you cash out before it pops.
That's not it either. Like one, cashing out before the bubble pops. Yeah, a lot of investors will do that. But another thing is making the right bet will be profitable over time. Even now, if you find the Google of the .com bubble, you will make a lot of money. Even if the bubble collapses, it contracts significantly, you can still make a lot of money because Google exploded afterward. And look at the company now, right? So if you find the right company, and as I said, you're looking at 2 IPOs. Maybe they're the right company, maybe they're not. I imagine one of the AI companies is going to make a lot of money. I don't know which one it is. Maybe that one doesn't even go public. Okay, off topic.
At the expense of regular people. So basically, everybody on the inside gets rich and everybody on the outside loses everything. Look at this, okay? Just look at this. The former CTO of OpenAI, Mira Murati, leaves, starts her own company. Okay, cool, good for her. And that company receives a $10 billion initial valuation immediately after $2 billion in seed funding, led, like, overall catalyzed by major technology firms. And this happened while the company had no product. Okay, but not only that, the company wouldn't even disclose what its own purpose was.
That's wild. Yeah, that's wild. Largest seed round ever at 10 billion pre-investment valuation. Top Silicon Valley. I mean, like, maybe she was that good
Think about this.
at her job.
Investors were breaking records, throwing never before seen amounts of money at a company that was actively refusing to tell them what the fuck it even was, simply because of AI hype.
That dumb.
That is insane and delusional. Ultimately, it's the same sort of accounting tricks, the same valuation schemes, the same hype-driven irrationality, and the execution of a well-known, well-established pattern, because economic hype cycles, for some unexplainable reason, seem to exist outside the world of collective logic. Back when I talked about how crypto was a massive, unsustainable bubble, I literally got hate mail for saying that. Flash forward to now, and practically every...
Like, it is a bubble. It is a bubble that is going to pop, but some people will get rich from it, and some people will lose everything. Fact is, there will be a lot more losers than winners, but people think they're winners, and so the bubble persists. They continue to persist, and they will always persist, and after the AI bubble, we will find something else to bubble. How it works.
Every single crypto project has categorically failed. The capital wipeout is best measured in the trillions, and yet even with a more precise historical example, that being Long Island iced tea, which rebranded, sold more stock, and then got delisted and subpoenaed, people are lining up behind a shoe company, spiking the valuation by 1,000%.
Like, that can't be people, right? A shoe company puts AI on their thing, and that's just someone looking at names, being like, oh, AI name, you can invest a little here. Just to cover our bases, you know, the AI shoe company.
And throwing their money on a burn heap because the words artificial intelligence were involved. Earlier, I said that if I failed to convince you that AI is a Titanic-level iceberg, you should dislike the video, but let me clarify that. It shouldn't matter whether or not you think that AI might, in some future version of reality, become a societally shaping construct.
It already is. Like, what most people don't realize is what we can currently do with AI is terrifying. The current iteration of it. Where's the best place to find the X? Okay. How do we find it? Factories with headsets. Maybe. This looks like it. I remember seeing a clip, and it was a bunch of people here.
लाइन में एक कैमरा सब आदमी लगाया है स्पॉट लाइन में, ठीक है, सब आदमी लगाया है कैमरा, इसमें मिनट सब चालू.
They're training an AI, a robot, to do their job. This is what we can currently do. You need data, train the robot. With our current iteration of it, they're acquiring data. there's a lag between what we can currently do and you seeing what we can currently do in society, because you need the collection of data. And this is what they're doing, like training robots to do this exact job. You give this 5 years, none of these people. Robot will do all of this. Oh, I guess I'm talking. Sorry, I do not speak that language. Thanks for checking out the chat stream.
है ठीक है, सब भाई लगाया है कैमरा, ठीक है, ये है ना, ये लगाया कैमरा, ठीक है, कैमरा मुड़ी में स्पॉटलाइट में लगा हुआ है कैमरा। अब ये कैमरा सब
This is where they currently are. Factory workers in India wear head-mounted cameras so that AI can observe exactly how humans perform physical labor. Every hand movement, every adjustment, every movement. Workers are training their own replacements in real time on the job site, and need to do. Like, if we can train a robot to do this, what can't we train a robot to do? The current robot, current iteration. They're only going to get better. Like they talk about funding cuts and cutting back compute, but this is still the worst version of AI we'll ever see, and they're already planning on using this worst version to replace a significant amount of physical. What's that other one? The robot that works in your house. What's the name of it? The new general person humanoids, Neo.
My name is Bernd, and today we're launching Neo, our humanoid for the
I gotta watch the whole thing.
With Neo's autonomy, you can get access to all of its latest AI features to get help with tasks on demand. In the Neo app,
So, from my understanding, this is not an AI robot. This is a person controlling a robot so that they can get data so that the robot can do it itself. So they're just like you saw the factory workers being recorded training. They're training for Neo. They have people doing the physical controlling while everything is recorded so that hopefully Neo can do it itself. And if you have enough data, the technology is already there. The issue is the acquisition of data. What they're trying to do with Neo. Was there another one? Figure 03. This is going to happen sooner than you think. And it's terrifying, but like, this is going to be the future. Fully autonomous. I mean, do they got people behind them? Saying it's fully autonomous. Tell Like, how long until something like this makes all factory work? Like, not great, but all you need to improve this with current technology is data. You need them up, you need them running, you need them learning. They collectively gather data, they collectively learn. This is advancing at an extreme pace. I think within 5 years, these replace pretty much all factory. And given how they're also replacing work with computers, like, what jobs does that leave left? I think the AI revolution is happening far quicker than most people realize. And it's advancing at a pace that is terrifying. Like, you say it's a bubble. If this can do the job of every person, is that really a bubble? I mean, I don't know if all these are real, of course, but we've even seen things out of China, with AI. So, like, I don't know. No, this one does not look real. Could change that. Yeah. I don't think they're at that stage. See, how far has AI and robotics come? When is it going to replace factory labor? All right, let's finish this.
Back in the 1990s, people said the internet would be just like that. And it is like that, okay? It is that monumental.
Yeah.
But just because the vision behind the bubble can be accurate 20 or 30 years later, right, doesn't make the bubble itself any less real.
It doesn't change the underlying costs and earnings of a company.
Or damaging. You could be the biggest fan of large language model development on planet Earth and still accurately acknowledge that the amount of wasted capital, the number of companies driving up their valuations in what I would say is a fraudulent manner, on top of the debt spiral that all of it's creating, is an iceberg. And if you hit the iceberg wrong, you sink the ship. My goal here is not to make a universal argument about whether or not any one piece of technology is good or evil, even though I do think the danger and negative downside right now far outweighs the benefits when it comes specifically to AI development. But regardless, my goal isn't to argue in absolutes. My goal is to showcase that the AI craze, right, with big air quotes there, is now the largest financial bubble in human history, with warning signs that perfectly echo prior economic meltdowns, multiple of them. And when the music stops, it will stop eventually, regular people get screwed. Executive...
I mean, like, you say it'll stop, but if they get to here, like, a lot of these are like, this looks like AI generated for sure, but First large-scale physical demonstration of their humanoid robots. Okay, we gotta turn that way down. Like, this one doesn't look AI. How do I open up that post itself? I want to see what people are saying. I don't know how to use this well enough. There we go. Okay, Figure 03 production is scaling. 350 plus robots delivered. Production ramp from 1 per day to 1 hour. Demo looks impressive, but the real game is the maintenance, uptime, edge cases, unit economics. I've seen this movie. Tesla will outpace this by tenfold. Humanoid robot rolling off the line every hour is cool, but also feels like the opening scene of a movie where nobody reads the warning label. Yeah. That is okay. Let's finish this before
It's
I get
cash
into
out.
that.
Founders walk away with golden parachutes, and billionaires get like government bailouts. But little Timmy, with his life savings in a cookie jar, trying to make some extra money by trusting the experts and putting that money in the data center market, he gets screwed. Just because a company puts AI in their name doesn't make it a good investment.
I mean,
That's
that's why you should be doing your own investments. Timmy, don't be trusting other people.
it. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below. The video sponsor, of course, Clean My Mac, special deals, channel memberships, and more. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching. Question everything, and have a nice night.
Ooh, okay, what do we got? We gotta finish this. Okay. I really liked that video. I actually disagree with him on some stuff, which, if anything, makes it a more fun video. Because then it makes me talk. He took a very doomer approach to the AI bubble, and like, I think there is a bubble. I think it will pop before they get to the point where they can completely replace labor, and so we will see a significant contraction. I don't know, like, in a bubble most people lose. It's just how it happens. There will be companies that survive the bubble that go on to become your new Google. Google's in the race. Given their capital, they got a decent chance of being able to outlast, if it does take a long time to get to like a more completed version. Like, it's complicated. I do expect the bubble to pop at some point, and for a lot of people to lose a lot of money. I personally would not recommend investing into this at the moment. Nah. There will also be people that make a lot of money. If you've got a lot of free money, like excess capital, it is possible you make a correct bet OpenAI or Anthropic that build the system that basically replaces all humans. And that would be incredibly profitable. And that, in my opinion, is what is fueling the bubble. There's a lot of stupid money going around. But some of the smart money, I think, is on to something. Okay, let's have a look at... No. Wanted the next question. Where did I ask the next? Here we go. How far have we come? Great question. This is one of the most consequential shifts happening in the global economy right now. Here's a breakdown. Because one of the things is just statistically, artificial general intelligence is impossible with the current iteration of AI. But every time I look into it, they've taken another step towards artificial. Like they've made it better, they've made it smarter. Every step they make is a step that I thought was impossible. And so if they're able to do this, which I would consider, like I would have considered this impossible less than 5 years ago, what are they going to be able to do in 5 years? You really say that they're not going to be able to get some kind of AGI when they continue to make models that are better and better and better and more and more and more. It's gotten to the point where you can like vibe code things out just mostly through speech. I don't know where this goes, but it's going to change everything, in my opinion. Okay, let's see how far we are right now. How far have we come? Industrial robots are already everywhere. Yep, factories worldwide installed over 500,000 industrial robots in 2024, a historic record that more than doubles installation from a decade ago. It's all about making workers more efficient. They use productive. These are the traditional arm-style machines doing welding, painting, and repetitive assembly. AI is now making robots smarter. Companies and researchers are moving beyond prototypes to deploy humanoid robots in real-world settings. Generative AI marks a shift from rules-based automation to intelligent, self-evolving systems that can adapt rather than just follow rigid programming. Investment is surging. As much as $4.6 billion was invested in humanoid robot development alone in 2025. Companies like Mind Robotics, spun off of Rivian, are raising hundreds of millions to build robots that can handle tasks requiring human-like dexterity and physical reasoning. The kind of work conventional autonomous can't address. Collaborative robots are spreading beyond car factories. In 2025, 2026, 70% of collaborative robots orders came from non-autonomous sectors. Logistics is a sector to watch, with a projection of 14.2 CAGR through 2029. Like, you already see that in some factories, not factories, Amazon warehouse. They have little robots up the shelf, carry the shelf, and the person just grabs the thing, bag, and wrap the bag. That person's job is in danger. The machines are going to be able to do all of that very soon, and they're not going to be necessary at all. When will factory labor be replaced? The honest answer, it's already happening gradually and will accelerate, but full replacement is further away than the hype suggests. Near term, 2030. Robots are estimated to replace around 20 million manufacturing jobs by 2030. Each new robot produced has placed an average of 1.6 manufacturing, and low-skilled regions are the most at risk. Now, that's 4 years away. 20 million manufacturing. And I think when I see them with cameras in India trying to gain data to replace Indian factory work, I think this is happening faster than their timetable. But let's go with their timetable. 2030, displace 20 million manufacturing. Medium term, 2030 to 2040, Forbes estimates 50 to 60% of jobs will be automated or transformed by AI by 2040. So we're looking now at 16 years. It's not removed, that's transformed by AI. I mean, automated or transformed. Goldman Sachs estimates AI could expose up to 300 million full-time jobs automated globally, quarter to half of those roles workloads being replaceable. So this is Forbes estimate. So they're saying 50 to 60% of jobs will be automated or transformed by AI by 20. Transformed by AI. What do they mean? Like someone uses AI in the job? Or their job is interacting with an AI to accomplish the job? The AI runs the water management, interact with it, get data from it, and sure everything's working correctly. Kind of. Okay. Goldman Sachs estimates AI could expose up to 30 million full-time jobs to automation globally. Quarter to a half of those roles, workloads be replaceable, so it's 100 million. Key bottleneck, dexterity. Yeah, human robots tend to fill labor gaps, still need to achieve human-level dexterity and productivity to complete with traditional automation on cycle times, energy consumption, and maintenance costs. Tasks like fine assembly, handling irregular objects, or working in cramped spaces remains genuinely hard for robots. This is why you see cameras on people's heads as they do tasks. They're trying to teach them to do just this. And at the scale they're doing it, I think they'll have the knowledge to do this very soon. The nuanced reality, rather than a sudden replacement, what's more likely is a gradual transition. I don't buy this. I don't buy this at all. I think we're seeing their gradual transition is going to be over 15 years rather than 50 years. I mean, even they are like, oh yeah, by 2030 to 2040, 50 to 60% of jobs will be affected. Dangerous and repetitive tasks go first. Welding, heavy lifting, hazardous material handling, like anything repetitive, up for very quick replacement. Complex assembly and judgment-based works technology. The judgment-based works, I think, is something that we may never lose to robots. At some point, you want a human in the kill chain so that the robot doesn't pick and kill its own targets. You want the human being like, okay, yes, this is a target. and then giving the robot the okay on the target. And like that's what we're currently seeing with like the Hornets train. Because it becomes so autonomous, but they still keep the human in the kill chain to look at the target and okay the target. And so that judgment based work. The issue is when your opponents have equal technology and they don't use human based verification. Does that become an inhibitor winning? And that's how you can see full automation happen. It's scary. But I think judgment based work is always going to be important for humanity. A 1% increase in industrial robot density has already been linked to a 0.8 increase in labor productivity. I mean, robots are currently augmenting output more than eliminating workers outright. Well, like that would be great if, say, you have an Amazon factory or an Amazon warehouse, and you have a bunch of robots, and now you can replace the people that usually did the packing. And now robots can. You don't need those people. Well, they understand the job. Maybe you still need them to watch over the robot. So now you have a job of people like checking out outputs, and instead of one factory, you build a couple factories. People that were all working in one factory now work in more factories, and so you've increased their productivity drastically by essentially replacing them and moving them to observer role or a fixer role or some other occupation around the robots themselves. And so it increases in labor productivity. Robots are currently augmenting output more than eliminating workers outright. I mean, you say that, look at manufacturing here in Canada, and it looks like it's destroyed a lot of it. There's a lot less manufacturing jobs than there used to be. New jobs titled like AI trainer, robotics, robotic ethics, and human technology integration specialists are expected to emerge. Education systems will need to shift towards creative, critical thinking, emotional intelligence. Yeah. An issue we are going to have as a society, species, a certain degree of people will not be able to make this to creativity, critical thinking, and emotional intelligence. If this is what you need for a job, a certain number of people will be made unemployable by AI. What they could do, what they could offer, can now be done by a machine, and they can't create or offer something. And you'll see this in the unemployment rate. So that is an issue that we're going to have to solve. I personally would prefer to solve it through like a UBI or a universal basic. Like the more I think about it, the more a UBI solves all the problems. Like through second and third order effects, it would solve all of the problems. Okay. Traits machines still struggle to replicate for the moment. Bottom line, factory automation is not a future event. It is happening now. The wave will hit repetitive, physical, low-skill manufacturing hardest over the next 10 to 15 years. Full replacement of all factory labor is likely decades away. I would say a decade. It says decades. I think the rate of progress, we'll see it in a decade. If it happens at all, it will. Because human adaptivity, judgment, and dexterity is in unstructured environments remain incredibly hard to replicate cheaply. True. Dexterity, adaptability, judgment, and dexterity in unstructured environments remain incredibly hard to replicate cheaply at scale. That is very true. You just need to structure the environment. And it could be. And you can structure most environments. So it thinks it's likely decades away from fully replacing people in factories. I think, what is it, 2026? A little over a decade, you'll see almost no factory work done by humans in Western society. That would be my prediction. Okay, well, I'm going to get off. Oh, I got into that one. Already over 4 hours. I gotta get better to responding to messages. Requires me to look over here more at my chat while talking, but looking up here is my camera. All right, well, I'm getting off. Thanks for watching. I'll have a good night. We will continue to talk about AI because this is incredibly fast changing environment right now. And having an AI summarize it for me. I wonder if it's biased yet. All right, you guys have a good night. Peace.